The new U.S. Department of Energy Secretary Rick Perry was in Idaho this week to get a first-hand look at the work being done at the Idaho National Laboratory. Trips like this are often a way for an agency head to determine the value of a particular national laboratory to help decide what resources are necessary for that lab. Aaron Kunz was there and has more on what Secretary Perry said regarding the future for those who work at the INL.
Energy Secretary Rick Perry left his Washington, D.C. office to visit Idaho's National Laboratory in eastern Idaho this week, meeting with Idaho leadership, including Congressman Mike Simpson and Idaho National Laboratory Director Mark Peters.
Not to say that the other 16 aren't very important, but what Idaho does is at the top of the list from my perspective. They're going to be one of the lead players, if not the lead player, as we develop and as we are developing the nuclear energy portfolio, and that is across the board. It's from a weapons standpoint, it's obviously from a security standpoint, our naval reactors and keeping our Navy moving, and it's also from the civilian nuclear side as well.
Addressing INL employees on Tuesday, Secretary Perry said he's proud of the work the Department of Energy is doing, reassuring them that despite a Trump administration promise to cut the budget, the work at 16 national labs across the country is vital to national security, the economy, and the goal to be energy independent.
You asked specifically about this administration's commitment, and I think we realize that we are in a time in this country when we have some pretty large budget deficit. I mean, a huge deficit. This administration is committed to getting that under control and getting it headed back in the right direction. It's one of the reasons they want to do major tax reform so we can grow the economy. With that said, you also saw this administration giving substantial dollars to the NNSA side of our shop, but we're committed to making those dollars be available to the labs, because I happen to think that the role that they play is one of the most important ones at the Department of Energy, which in turn, I'm biased here, but I happen to think that what DOE does is as important as any of the agencies of government.
For those unfamiliar with the NNSA, it stands for the National Nuclear Security Administration, a branch of the Department of Energy that's primarily responsible for the safety and security of the U.S. nuclear weapons stockpile. National security includes a strong cybersecurity focus, one of the many jobs being done at the INL. In fact, when asked if the INL's role could grow in the coming years, Secretary Perry says this is the area most likely to grow.
Here's where I think specifically you will see a focus, and INL has a real role to play in this. Cybersecurity, exascale, supercomputing side of it, and what INL does on the supercomputing side to augment exascale, that next generation of supercomputer. Both of those are growth areas, and I would suggest to you into the future, both of those will be prioritized.
Not bad for a former presidential candidate who once said this was an agency he'd like to see eliminated. Secretary Perry also indicated that nuclear energy will play a role here at the INL and is vital to the nation.
We got behind in the last 30 years. I think we need to focus more on this resource, do it right, do it safe, but so that we can have a portfolio of energy resources in America that are vast and broad. I believe this administration is committed to, certainly I'm committed to, nuclear energy and the civilian growth side of that. Fast reactors are one of the areas that I think there's some real potential growth. I mean, we see the Russians and the Chinese headed down that path with fairly good expedition. The United States, I think, would be wise to use the resources that we have here to commit to the future of having our ability to participate in that fast reactor technology and the potential that it has for the future.
Fast reactor technology allows the size of a reactor to be physically smaller. One of the reactors being researched at the INL is the breeder reactor. The fast process has the ability to run more efficiently, using a higher percentage of a fuel rod's radioactive properties. That means less fuel is needed over the life of a reactor and less spent fuel that will be sent to long-term storage. Plus, that spent fuel has less radioactive properties and won't need to be stored as long as spent fuel from traditional reactors.